This is Doc Burgess. No, this is Doc Burgess.
That is Doc Burgess.
This is somebody else, and this is somebody else, and this is somebody else. But
Yes.
this is Doc Burgess. Well, we want to talk a little bit about the episode Doc Burgess today because we get to meet Anthony Floyd in season 2. We're so happy to have you here. And before we get really started talking about the episode, we just kind of want to hear a little bit about Anthony. I met you, is it like 4 years ago now?
I think more than that.
5?
It's been a while.
Yeah. Anthony and I were in a class together, and Julian Christie
Yes.
was our teacher, and it was my first acting class ever.
And you didn't look like it was your first acting class. You were brilliant. And I remember one of your first scenes, and it was a big monologue that you did, and you just sort of took command of the stage, and wow, it was really impressive.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I have no memory of that, but that's all right. That was when I was having babies, so I've blocked out about 10 years of my life. It's just a happy, glowing memory of those years. I don't have any memories
The
of
fourth wall does wonders for that, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Well, what other stuff do you do besides being an amazing actor and voice actor, Anthony?
Well, I can't say I'm an amazing voice actor, but it's been a lot of fun.
You can't say it. I can say it. Can you say it, Mike?
I can say it.
I'll say it.
Okay.
Oh, great. I think we're unanimous. So my day job is, roughly speaking, studying guns and drugs. I work at one of the local universities and really doing acting and doing more creative things as a way to sort of cope, if you will, with some of the things that are not so great in the world. But we try and make contributions to science as well as we can. And so, Doc Burgess is I think, a very different person than Anthony, the researcher.
Well, and that's the fun thing about being on Broken is I kind of feel like all our characters, they're parts of us, but
Oh, absolutely.
but they're the things we don't usually get to express, and they're the crazy people that are probably kind of hiding inside of us sometimes.
And I know that Anthony is an amazing photographer, too.
That's true.
And does a lot of work with roller derby.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun also. I've been doing roller derby photography for around 5 years or so. And, that's, again, sort of using that other side of the brain that is hopefully more creative.
How did you get involved with roller derby, though?
More fluky than anything. My wife took it up, and
way.
as these things happen, sometimes the spouse comes along for the ride, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
But I've been doing more work independently, and I've gotten to know some folks in the community and work with a bunch of different teams, and so it's been a lot of fun.
Does she still skate?
Her career is transitioning, we'll say.
Okay.
Didn't she break a leg a couple years ago or something in roller derby?
Yeah, she broke her leg, and she broke the heck out of it, really. And, but then came back and was skating better than ever. So
Wow.
she's my model of resilience out there in the world.
She's a strong person, that's for sure.
Oh, I couldn't do that.
I have to ask, what's her roller derby name?
Do they have fake names when they're doing roller derby?
Yeah, there's skater
Derby
names.
names, Kate.
Derby names.
Carrie,
Derby
yes.
names.
Yep, they have derby names, and her derby name was Woo's Your Mama.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
We got to write an episode about roller derby now in Broken, right? That would be so much fun. Maybe we could get all the roller derby people to come in. And
Mine was
Oh,
Mike the
yeah.
Merciless.
you did not do roller derby.
I was a referee for 3 years.
Were you really?
Yeah. My daughter did roller derby for 7 years.
There you
My
go.
mom worked with a woman who did roller derby. Her derby name was, Jugs or Not.
Oh, I like that one.
Well, we're really excited that Anthony came to be with us. I've been trying to get him to come the whole first season, but I don't know, you're busy doing some theater work somewhere else, and being an actor on the stage.
I definitely was doing some more stage work, and it's been interesting because I feel like with this group, I've been at a bit of a disadvantage not having any formal work with improv, and so my learning curve has been maybe a little bit steeper.
Well, and here's what I have to say. You would not know that
No,
because
no.
you jumped in. Like this first episode, Doc Burgess, I think what you did is you listened to the first season, right?
Yes.
So that you kind of knew who the characters were. And you walked in and you just you owned this character from the get-go.
Yeah.
It was fabulous.
I definitely tried to do my homework, both about the town, the characters, and also the background that you gave me on the real Doc Burgess, and wanting to do it, honoring sort of the person behind this, who was a good-hearted, no-nonsense person, because I didn't want him to fly down here and kick my butt.
Right. Do you guys know that Doc Burgess is a real person?
I didn't know that.
No.
Yeah. So my husband's a veterinarian, right? And in Alaska, in real Alaska, not fake Alaska, there's a veterinarian, and his name is Doc Burgess. And I guess he's kind of done everything in his career up there.
Does he have a TV show? Because
No.
there's some vet, it might be a woman though, some vet in Alaska. She's like a wilderness vet.
I don't think it's the same person because this is a man. But like for a while he was mayor of the town. For a while he had like other jobs, but he was always the vet. He has a cockatoo. His office is this little sort of closet, and he barters for services.
So like
And
our Doc
they
Burgess.
even, like the towns that he worked for and stuff, Alex even has it in his office right now. There's a bumper sticker that said, "What would Burgess do?" Because he's sort of this jack of all trades, good guy, willing to go out of his way to help animals, whatever they need, and, get paid in venison or salmon
designer
or
shoes.
Designer
Or
shoes.
designer shoes,
I don't
yes.
know
Yeah.
if that's really a thing up there. But yeah, so I'd heard about Doc Burgess, the real one, up in Alaska for years now from my husband. And I was like, he's a character in and of itself. And certainly our Doc Burgess isn't exactly the same, but we did want to have that kind of a character on the show.
Well, I think even though the first season would have been stronger if we'd had Anthony since the beginning,
Yeah.
I kind of in a way like the way, Anthony, that you came in during the second season, because one thing Carrie and I have talked about before is there's 71 people in the town of Broken, and we've met maybe 25 of them, maybe. So there's a lot of people in town who we've never met. So it makes sense that Doc has been around Broken for many, many years. We just hadn't met him yet in the show.
Yeah.
And there are a number of other characters who we've talked about, but who we still haven't met, like Mary, who Heather's always talking to.
And
or
Gus at the Gasso station.
Gus, who owns the Gasso
Yeah, yeah.
station, but we haven't met them yet.
Margaret Hall's boy toy Tyler.
Yes.
Stuff like that. There's lots of other people in Broken we just don't hear about, that's for sure. Well, thanks for joining the show, Anthony.
Well, this has been a lot of fun for me. I think there's still some technical and some creative challenges that, I'm still trying to get my head around in order to, be a better participant. But it's been great joining the cast, and the level of raw talent that the group has just been really a treat. And as opposed to, some of the stage work where, it's 6 weeks and you're out, and if you're lucky, you get to work with the person again. Having the continuity of an ongoing cast has been really quite delightful.
I agree.
Agree. Let's talk about this episode a little bit. Doc Burgess. It's the first
love
time
this
we
episode.
meet the character, and it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. I think this is one of our best ones so far. I mean, you start out in scene 1, Rose and Brooke are at the dock, right? And Paul Einhorn, God, he just comes up with the funniest stuff. I think we suggested to him at the beginning of the scene, because we just sort of give everybody 2 sentences. Okay, this is what this scene's about. Make it up as you go along. But I think we suggested, wouldn't it be funny if you've started writing poetry?
Yes.
and real actor Paul Einhorn writes poetry, beautiful poetry. And we're like, no, it has to be terrible poetry.
Yeah, the worst poetry ever.
Like it should rhyme, and that's about all that could qualify it as poetry. We want it to be really uncomfortable and really, really bad.
My favorite was long, long, long time wanting you. Something like that.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
Brick Brickman,
Yeah.
the William McGonagall that Australia deserves.
He was so funny that he came up with stuff. And we kept having to ask him several times throughout the season. You'll see if you keep listening to the show. But we'd say, wouldn't it be good if Brick just sort of spouted a poem right now? And he rolls his eyes every time, like, oh, God, don't make me do this again.
But I have to tell you that one of my favorite lines in that whole thing is when they're in Doc's office and Doc goes, "Did you just make that up? Are you into poetry?" And he goes, "Yeah." And Doc goes, "Why?"
That's a good question.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That is amazing. Well, so when we get up to Doc's office, Rose and Brick hobble up to Doc's office in the second scene after she's thrown him in the... Well, he tried to grab her butt. I mean, come on, right? Everybody understood that he's a creepy guy, and she had to toss him in the river. So, or in the harbor, or whatever it is.
I would never do that, he
well,
says.
but he goes, I would never grab your butt. If I was going to grab a firm, round,
Shapely
beautiful, shapely butt, it would be yours. And she's like, geez, come on, prick. But so I love that they get up to Doc Burgess's office. It's essentially a closet in town hall, it sounds like, right?
Right.
And he's there sometimes and he's not there because he's off doing maybe some large animal stuff, maybe some small animal stuff.
Because there's fur all over the exam
there's
table.
fur all over the exam table.
It's not very tidy. There's...
He was grooming Mark.
Right, maybe.
Mark in his wilderness self.
Yeah, well, I have to keep my pelt clean.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. But it becomes clear that Doc is sort of a jack of all trades too. Like sometimes he does humans, sometimes he does animals.
That's the thing that I love about Doc Burgess. He's a large animal veterinarian, and everyone in the town is a large animal of some kind.
This is true.
Depending on the day.
This is another case where the things that maybe Carrie and I talk about before we record the show and what actually gets recorded varies. So like one thing we had recorded, or one thing that we had talked about for Doc's character, is that maybe he's not really a doctor and maybe he's not really a vet.
Maybe he's not really any of those things.
Yeah. But he's just, we just let him take care of us anyway. But that never actually made it into the show, that idea. He became, Anthony, you became so good at being Doc Burgess that kind of fell by the wayside.
I still have a
he
theory
seemed
about
nice,
that, though.
really.
He's a nice guy, so
Yeah.
we'll let him take care of us.
Well,
Yeah.
but I am hopeful that it's not Doc in quotes, that he actually did study something. I think in my head I imagined him as maybe going to like a really good veterinary school, like Ohio State or something. But then maybe
Ohio State.
but maybe more of a lesser known medical school, like maybe somewhere in Grenada or something like that.
Right.
Well, my theory is, since we mentioned in one episode that he was in the Falklands,
Yeah.
that maybe
Yes.
he was a medic or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, my theory, in a later episode, we're asking people's names to do something alphabetically.
Yeah.
And Mark's like, I'm Mark, and everybody gives their first names. And Doc says, I'd prefer not to tell you my first name.
Yeah.
And I know you have an idea what it is. I think his first name is Doctor.
Oh.
I think his parents named him Dr. Burgess, and his name is Doc Burgess, but everybody assumed that meant he was a real doctor, and he just went with it.
See, I thought it was something like
boy.
Aloysius or something that he didn't
Could
want that
be.
getting around.
We're not really sure.
No.
But I love in
Season
that
3.
I love in that same scene where Mark asks Sheriff Jim, "What's your last name?"
Yeah.
And it was just so weird because it was like, well, how would you not know his last name? But
Right,
But it's like, a lot of people like Denise mentions at one point, I didn't know Bert had a last
We
name.
hardly ever say it. So, yeah,
Well,
sometimes
that's the thing with small town life is sometimes you just get to know somebody by their name or by
Yeah.
their job, or that's Sheriff Jim, or that's Old Man Fletcher. Or
Honestly, I bet I know a lot of people I don't know their last names of.
my mom used to run like a chemical dependency group out of her home, and we had a horse breaker who would show up, and his name was Art. I never knew Art's last name. The things that I knew about Art were his name, his profession, and that he had a turquoise front tooth because he'd taken a fall off a horse and chipped it, so he had to have it replaced.
Are you
Turquoise
saying he
front
has
tooth.
a turquoise, like the actual stone
Yep, the
turquoise?
actual stone put in place of like where
Not a gold tooth.
And we're just now finding this out. You didn't work
You
this
didn't
into an
work this
episode
in-
like Johnny 99
Come
has a turquoise
on,
tooth?
Crowley.
Jeez.
I'm happy to do
Come
it.
on. I feel really let down.
Okay, so Doc Burgess,
Anyway, back
the
to
episode.
Dr. Burgess. Right. Another funny thing we learned about Doc in that scene, though, and I just love how detail-oriented you were, Anthony, when you were making up all these details as you were going along, which really makes the scene beautiful. Like that
Yeah.
you're just sort of improvising not just general things, but really good details. And at one point, and I don't know how this came about, but you start talking about how beautiful Brick's shoes are.
Yeah.
And they he just went with it, and it turned into this notion that Doc Burgess might get paid in shoes.
Yeah.
And that's
Which is hilarious.
So funny.
Especially given that Brick's shoes are like $600 or $700 a pair.
Right, his Ferragamo hiking boots.
Yeah.
And what was it, like llama leather or Italian yak or something?
Tibetan yak
Tibetan
leather.
yak
Yeah.
leather.
No, I think it was, borrowing from the initial notion that, the real Doc Burgess may be bartering for services. And,
Right, yeah.
And, everyone has to have a quirk, so why not shoes?
Sure.
And I think he sort of pushes that edge of somewhere between enthusiasts and fetishists, but not quite crossing the line.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And that, Brick Paul Einhorn just rolled with that. You can almost hear him like just sigh and be like, you know what, Doc, do you just want the shoes? Like, this isn't the first time Brick has given Doc shoes in exchange for payment. And we introduced this idea, and I didn't know this was going to be a thing, but Brick maybe has some chemical dependency issues. Like he has a sort of addictive personality. Perhaps in the past he has had some problem with opioid addiction, or he really wants the drug. Remember, he has like a sprained ankle. He's like, you got to give me something for the pain. Painkillers, right?
That's right.
And so Anthony, unbeknownst to all of us, goes, I'm going to give you some of this Obacalp. And I didn't get it.
We
when
were
he
all
said
like,
that.
what?
We were like, oh, I don't know what that is. And it isn't until later when you tell Rose it's placebo spelled backwards. I think we had to pause. I'm like, O-B. Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one to start off with, because in my day job, that's something that is part of the research that I am looking at. And so I wanted to, I didn't want to make light of it in such a way that it would be irresponsible, professionally, but also, we want to try to have fun with this. We try to make it interesting. And so it's like, all right, how do we do this in a reasonable, tasteful way?
Right, yeah. I believe, though, by the end of the show, when you realize what Brick is making Rose do, like the guilt trip he's giving her and how she's washing his undies and making the Peking duck for him and the pillow chiller that he has.
That was my
Yeah.
Pillow chiller.
that was one of my favorite things in the episode. And the idea that he has a pillow chiller.
Is
I mean,
that
that's
a
the
thing?
like the
Is
ultimate.
that a real thing?
No, I just made it up. But it's like the ultimate in luxury.
Right. You don't have to flip your pillow over to
Yeah,
get a cool
you just take
side.
it out of the pillow
Take
chiller.
it out of the pillow chiller.
And,
oh my God.
and the notion that he has those pillows dry cleaned, and questions that you
Every day.
like
You
doesn't everyone?
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Right. He says that at the end. Yeah. So by the end of the episode, you're seeing that Brick is absolutely taking advantage of her and making her feel guilty, and that he wasn't even that hurt in the first place. And that's so into Brick's character. We talked about how he's kind of a sleazeball, but we like him anyway. But he does really questionable stuff, and
None more questionable than this, though.
this is pretty questionable. So you almost don't feel bad for him that you've given him a placebo and that you're sort of lying to him. And I almost feel like the Doc Burgess is doing that in a kind way.
Yeah, to help him.
Like, I had never thought of Doc Burgess being jerky about it. He's clearly trying to be kind.
That was definitely a case where Doc was really trying to be helpful and not be irresponsible as a practitioner. From the beginning and through the way that Doc proceeds with the other characters in the town. It's one of the things I've grown to really love about Broken, sort of as a town and conceptually, is everyone's acceptance and embrace of the absurd.
Yeah.
So we proceed with mild cases of lycanthropy and other notions that's like, well, it's just sort of what happens here, and that's okay.
Absolutely. It
And
is the way it is.
We're not judgmental about it, and people can redeem themselves even after doing pretty sleazy things.
Right.
My favorite line in that bit, I think you were, Rose was talking to Doc in the early scene, and Doc goes, well, a couple years ago we had a broken toe. And she goes, oh, was he out hiking?
Yes.
No, he dropped a gold stapler on it.
Yeah, it was really heavy.
He would have a gold stapler.
Yeah.
That gold stapler shows up later in an episode again, too, and I love it. That's so funny how we like the whole cast is listening and paying attention and picking up on those little details. It's so cute.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little office space, actually.
It is a little office space, but the red stapler.
Please don't touch my gold stapler. I'm waiting
Yeah.
for it to appreciate on the currency exchange.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that a real thing? I've never seen that, so I don't know. But
Yeah, it is. Well, it's not a gold stapler. He has a red stapler.
Oh,
Red swing
okay.
line stapler. And
office space.
That's all he wants,
Well,
really.
there you
I also love Rose's description, like trying to give Doc directions.
in Brick's house.
In Brick's mansion.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So you go down past the fountain, and then there's 3 statues, and then there's another staircase, and you go past the tapestry. Yeah. Like Brick's house is this palatial mansion. You even had to look on the giant screen in the
Yeah.
beginning for the "You Are Here" dot and the
that's
map.
right.
Remember? That was so
No,
funny.
Yes. Rose pointing out, I told you should have made the "You Are Here" sign
Bigger, right?
Yeah.
Well, we also have Crowley here today, Michael Crowley, who plays Mark. And there's a scene that I really liked that has him sort of featured in it in this episode. So Joey and Mark and Heather and Louise are talking because Mark's been sort of depressed lately.
Right.
Since the whole dagger thing, since he couldn't get out into the woods.
He couldn't be the one to save Rose.
He couldn't
Yeah,
save
and he
Rose.
really wanted to be.
Yeah, and that really has bummed him out. So he's been kind of depressed these first couple episodes. And Louise and Joey and Heather noticed this. Louise has such a great run of Rose bashing.
Oh, yeah.
She goes, wait, this is why you're depressed, Mark? Because of Rose?
Stinky Rose?
And she just goes on and on and on. And she gets to the point where, like, those books you give her, she doesn't even read them. He goes, what are you talking about? No, I see her. Louise says something like, she uses those books to hide the real books she's reading. The book called How to Ruin Men.
Yeah.
like she's got it tucked in
Yeah.
some other novel, and she's really reading this other thing. And that's so fun. She's a mastermind. She's a produce lady. What did you expect, right?
Yeah.
So that Louise gets another chance to just rip on Rose.
Is it this
She's
episode?
so good at
is it
that.
this episode where he says he's journaling over it? And
Yeah,
she,
and
she
she
goes,
goes, "Oh,
what are you, a teenage
You're
boy?
a teenage boy? You're
should-
writing in a journal?
You should be like Carlos.
Yes. Take off your shirt and put on a medallion.
Yeah.
Right. So they try to boost Mark's spirits here, but I don't know that it actually worked. very well.
No, I
What is the quote that Mark says?
He says some poems. He's read some things.
Yeah,
something about love,
I
yeah.
literally, I think I name checked like Charles Bukowski, Love being a song that I would never learn to sing or something like that. Or
And
It's something very pathetic.
and for our listeners, Michael, the actor, really is quite a bit like Mark, the character, when it comes to books and literature. He knows an astounding amount about
It
literature.
is a little encyclopedic,
Yeah.
Michael Crowley's
Yeah,
knowledge
it's
of
impressive.
literature. It's a little, though it's funny because you know so many rare or what's the word I'm looking for?
Obscure.
Like obscure, rather obscure things. There was another part, I don't remember when it was, but Mark is going off on some book. And at one point, Heather goes, Mark, sometimes I just don't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
And it's because sometimes when Crowley's talking, we all just go, have you ever read that? I've never
Yeah.
read that. I've never even heard of that.
What is he talking about?
yeah, well, when I go to a bookstore, I literally kind of grab whatever really strikes my fancy. I inherited this from my dad. He reads pretty much anything and everything, from Montana history to detective fiction to science fiction. I picked up my love of Asimov from my dad, my love of Conan Doyle from my dad, and he will send me strange books. Like one of the books I name-checked in an earlier episode, We Pointed Them North, by a Texas cowboy who came to Montana named Teddy Blue Abbott. He was someone my great-grandfather knew.
And you did mention that in an episode.
Because I was literally reading Teddy Blue's book at the time, and it was kind of fun because he was someone that, my family knew.
Well, speaking of Arthur Conan Doyle, did you ever read any of the Professor Challenger stories?
No, I haven't.
A lot of people, everyone knows Sherlock Holmes, but a lot of people doesn't know he had that second hero, Professor Challenger.
Yes, or like I see.
Which is a great name. I wish that was my name.
I've
It could
seen.
be.
I
Yes.
think, there were a couple of TV films. Bob Hoskins played Professor Challenger in, I think something either A&E or Sci-Fi did. They did a two-parter of The Lost World.
Oh, that's interesting because Professor Challenger is described as being like 6'10". He's like a huge, huge man. Like
The
a
opposite
bear
of Bob
a man.
Hoskins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
exactly.
a silent.
He's
there's
more of a
yeah.
hill of a man
Yeah, right.
as opposed to a mountain of a man.
But
a lovely man, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, he was such a great actor. He could be 5'2" and play a man who's 6'7".
Yes, he could.
So
But back to my point.
you had a point.
Yes, Mark said something like, love is a thing that's eluded me.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody goes, oh, God, Mark, you're bringing us down.
Yeah.
We're talking about love.
You are
and it's-
depressing me.
Yeah, you're depressing me.
Stop that immediately.
Stop this
Yeah.
immediately. I love that bit. Well, another
I
big...
wish I could, Rose, but I can't quit you.
Yeah. Well, she's addictive. It's true.
Yeah.
Another big part of this episode, though, was Bert has asked Annika to come to the Way Tenango Coffee
Yes.
Roasting Hut. And she goes in her usual Annika kind of ditziness, like, hey, Bert, how's it going? And he tells her the big reveal that he has found out she is not this ditzy person she's pretended to be in all of season 1.
Yeah.
Annika, it turns out, is a bounty hunter. I love how Taylor, who plays Annika in this one, went from, oh, Bert,
I
you're
don't even know what a
silly."
bounty hunter is.
Okay, it's true, it's me. What do you got, Bert? And like they have the Mexican standoff, they're each pointing their guns at each other. And,
Yeah.
And Bert is asking her for help because he believes the Dagger's second in command,
Red trousers.
red trousers.
Or rosa pantalones.
Or puce panties.
Yes.
And that's so funny too, like the idea that they don't want to say red trousers out loud. Like we'll have to come up with a code name for red trousers.
The vermilion slacks.
Something
Right,
so similar that no one would ever
Just
figure it
as
out.
The burgundy
synonyms.
capri.
Oh, we never came up with that one.
Ooh, where
Yeah.
were
Good
you?
one.
We needed that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she is going to help Bert in his search for red trousers. I don't even know. I can't think of
We
the
can
name.
say it.
Yeah,
Red
we can say it
trousers.
now. Yeah.
Yes.
Just don't say it.
The crimson culottes.
Yes.
Ooh, I
Ooh.
like it. So I thought that was a pretty important bit that took the story in a new direction.
It was, and it also was. It was also a change for Annika's character,
Which was so good.
because we needed something new for Taylor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Her whole first season was sort of this ambiguous. We weren't really sure who she was. She tried not to give anybody any information. And now we know why. Because
Yeah.
she's...
She says she's on an important case.
I don't know what it is.
We never find out.
Do we?
I don't know. Do we?
One of the things I like about that storyline is these other plot lines that sort of follow through the characters in Broken. And, the fact that you have, the small town with this kind of almost Cabot Cove-like kind of murderous streak that sort of runs through it. And I remember listening back to, I think it was Sweet Baby Jesus, where you're introducing some of the darker elements of that go through the town. And it's sort of a nice way to offset some of the more sort of fun quirkiness and provide some continuity and something to really, as a listener, dig your teeth into to sort of see where that's going to go next.
Yeah, and I think it was important. We didn't want to have, this isn't a true crime series. We don't want
Right.
to have, it be scary and the bad guy doesn't rule all the time. So we'll often have a couple of episodes that are just goofy story episodes, or almost like a situation is going on. In season 1, there's the one where they all go whitewater rafting on the Jackhole River. And there was
Right.
very little darkness to that because there's just sort of a bit of story about what's going on in day-to-day living in Broken. But every couple episodes we try to weave in, don't forget, there's this bad guy who's coming to kill you all.
Yeah. I guess the dark thing in that episode was when Brick sold everybody defective life jackets and
Filled with
Yes.
baby
nearly
diapers.
drowned everyone.
But he made a few dollars.
He
so
did,
it
yeah,
was
so
worth
it's
it in the
okay,
long
yeah.
run. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's obvious. That's the engine that keeps the economy going. Really.
Yeah.
Right.
Entrepreneurship.
Who can blame him? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fraud, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
6 of 1, tomato.
You say tomato, I say tomato. Well, we just really wanted to thank Anthony Floyd and Michael Crowley and Mike Fuller, and I'm Carrie Aguilin. And we really hope that you're enjoying listening to Season 2 of Broken Alaska, because I got to tell you, it gets so good. Season 2 just sparkles with life and love and fun and relationship and mystery. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to the rest of it. But thank you so much, Anthony, for being a part of
Yeah,
Season 2.
absolutely.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Mike.
Of course.
And Mike.
Mike and Mike. Mike and Ike. Ike
Yeah.
and Mike. Excellent.